Have you ever wondered what would happen if only the future Clockman existed in the Skibidi Multiverse? How would this change affect the other Alliance members, as they would be without any Titan and would only depend on the future Clockman in battles? Well, we all know the story of how the future Clockman came about, and it's actually complicated, as the Sinister is really pressing hard to be his father. Strange, right? However, we don't know about that yet, but he literally spawned out from an attempt to resurrect the large Clockman. So you could say it's his future self that came back to the present, quite more advanced. But we didn't see much from him till later in the series. So, for this case, he'll still be at his base form, which is the large Clockman. Yeah, we saw how useful the large Clockman was in the series, but don't forget that the Alliance got help from the Clock Titan and others to clear the mutants and toilets out of the base. So now that they don't exist, the agents would have to come into the Clock base to help them against the full fleet of toilets invading the Clock base. Yeah, the battle would pretty much be heated, with the Clock agents going all out to protect their territory. But the Scientist, and when I talk about the Scientist, I don't mean the Titan version, as to make it as fair as possible, we should make sure the advancement in technology is equal. So, what the Skibidis would be able to send are toilets and mutants for now, because imagine if the Scientist invaded the base in Titan form. Without the help of the Titans to hold him back, he'll literally level the base to the ground. So for now, he doesn't have his shell, but definitely it'll be in the making, and the manufacture of toilets would be ongoing and fast to meet up the demand on the battlefield. So, the plan of the Scientist would be to attack the Clock boss, as he's the leader of the Clocks. It would be able to affect them psychologically to win the war. So, the plan would be to distract the others while they ambush the Clock boss. With the plan laid out, they'll go on to raid the base with the toilets and mutants. While the agents are in the battle against the toilets, the Clock boss would be targeted and they'll fire a shell at him. But this time, before he would react, it would already be too late. So the large Clockman, which was closest to him, had to jump into the blast, saving the Clock boss's life, pushing him away from the impact. And this makes the large Clockman decapitated. But due to the intense battles, nobody has enough energy to revive him immediately, so he's taken out of the battlefield on a Clock helicopter back to the base. Well, the Scientist would see that the assassination attempt didn't work, so he'll have to call out the toilets to retreat as their numbers are depleting rapidly. This would enable the Clocks to cater to the injured and grieve over the loss of the large Clockman. The Clocks would try to revive him, but it won't just work. They'll need more energy. However, the Scientist is not yet done. The Alliance knows it wouldn't be long before he attacks again, and this time even more aggressively. So they'll have to form an alliance with other races like the Drills for more manpower to stand up against the toilets. So with more manpower, the Alliance's goal would be to bring back the large Clockman, who was split into multiple parts from the explosion. They would then have to take him over to Big Ben, as the Chief Clock ordered, and the process would begin there. The Chief Clock would try, but it would seem like it can't work. So the others would join in to try to revive him. But there'll be a sudden gush of power, which would blow them away. And yeah, they wouldn't be moving after this. So it did damage. Then we'll get introduced to the future Clockman. Seeing the damage that trying to revive him has caused, he'll use his energy to try to revive them, stealing even more energy so he'll be able to revive his friends. When he finally revives the Chief, he'll then be able to seal whatever is causing the earthquakes. But just outside, there's a battle ongoing, which the Scientist has started, and they are approaching the base. The future Clockman would be able to use his chrono-destruction to, in one scoop, destroy all the toilets and mutants. Yeah, just imagine the surprise it would be for the Scientist. He'll have to retreat, as fighting against this new Rolex head clock would not be worth it. So he'll go back to base. But on getting to the base, there'll be info about a mysterious woman that came to apprehend them. The Scientist would offer to see this woman, and there, peacefully, they'll have talks on how to conquer together, as they have a common enemy, the Alliance. So they would craft their master plan to bring it down. So the plan would be to attack the highest in the triangle, which are the Clocks. The Scientist would still state that he wants the boss gone for personal reasons known to him. So the unsuspecting Alliance would be planning a way to get the help of the other races like the Pencils to join in the Alliance, as they would provide even more manpower to fight against the toilets. However, unknown to them, the Skibidis are planning another coup on the Clocks to take over. So they see a massive troop of toilets, and by this time, all the Alliance member races would have to stay at one base to ensure they are stronger in numbers and share technology. So the toilets would be met with a wave of soldiers from the Alliance side who are ready to do anything to protect the base. So the battle rages on, with massive explosions everywhere. But here's where Alpha comes in. She'll have to invade the Clock base and get the boss. So she tears the doors open with lightning from her orbs. The Clock Boss, seeing this, would try to retaliate, but he'll be stopped by the future Clockman. And this time, it won't be like in the former timelines where he was defeated. I don't seem to understand how Alpha was able to defeat him in those timelines. Maybe then he was weak relative to her. But for now, the battle rages, with the future Clockman literally bullying Alpha with his immense speed and agility. Alpha would be no match, so she's now beaten and battered up. She resorts to her last line of defense. She goes on to summon out the Counter Titan, and bro, must I say, they were terrified of it, as basically they have no idea what a Titan would look like. How are they going to fight against something this massive and powerful? Well, the Counter Titan is ready to attack them, and they don't have anything to fight back, right? Well, that's not the case. You see, the future Clockman has seen all of this coming and thought of a way they could get something to fight against this monster, and that's where the pencils come in. They'll have to make a duplicate of what they are seeing. Remember that they planned to form an alliance with the pencils. Well, it later worked, as the pencil boss gave the permission to draw the Counter Titan based on the description from the future Clockman. So basically, the Counter Titan has to fight a prototype of himself. But this prototype obviously is not as strong as the original, but at least could do something. So they have a plan. This large creation would take a lot of energy to maintain, as it'll need to regenerate if damaged. So they just need it to hold off the counter while the future Clockman deals with Alpha. While in the battle with Alpha, things are not that easy, as she puts up a good fight, but she's weakened from prolonged battles. So she's captured and is forced to call off the Counter Titan. She's hesitant at first, then, with a lot of torture, she finally agrees to call it off. By now, the Counter Titan has already torn the pencil prototype to shreds and is going after the base, when Alpha commands him to stop, and the counter stops, awaiting further instructions. This was the only strategy that would just buy the Alliance enough time to think about what they'll do next. It won't be easy to put the Counter Titan down, and the only reason they are still standing is because Alpha called a truce. They'll have to do something fast, or the Counter Titan returns to rescue Alpha. Meanwhile, the Skibidis are feeling betrayed, thinking she screwed them, so she's tagged an enemy, although they had to retreat earlier, pulling out their forces to work on something even better. So, as they had predicted, the Counter Titan comes back, this time on his own will, to take back Alpha. But that had given the Alliance enough time to strategize. They had created a time capsule that freezes anything in it in time, just like we saw the future Clockman do with the Commander. Kudos to the clock scientist for his invention. They are now able to lure the Counter Titan into range and fire up the machine, creating a time bubble that traps the Counter Titan in time, sealing him, although now they have something to protect other than their base, which is the machine creating the time bubble. So Alpha is imprisoned, and the Alliance takes the win, right? Well, not yet. You see, the Skibidis retreating and staying quiet means something is off. As the Clock Boss worries, then on one of their raids, they get wind of the information that the Skibidis are building something, a fortress, the G-Man Apocalypse. I guess that would just be overkill, and from here, it can either go two ways. The agents storm into the base and are able to stop the G-Man, which I doubt with the mutants they'll have to fight, or the future Clockman is somehow able to convince the Counter Titan that he's just a toy or puppet in Alpha's hands and sugarcoated enough to get him to their side. Then that's where they'll stand a chance against G-Man. And even if they manage to infiltrate the base, they'll be met by G-Man, which I guess the future Clockman would be able to handle, I guess. But in every scenario, the G-Man Apocalypse unleashes, making it even more harder for the Alliance to secure victory. However, check out this video to find out the biggest weakness of each Skibidi Multiverse Titan. Unique Clockman out.